Hello everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I'm sorry I haven't learned Spanish yet, but I will try. It's for me a very beautiful language, and I hope with these good friends of mine, Juan and Carlos, I will have an opportunity in the next years. I would like to thank you both for the invitation. It's a big honor and pleasure to be here in this beautiful and incredibly inspiring city. And I would like to thank you both, of course, for making this book, because it was an adventure to travel through my places with you, see it through your eyes and words, not only my work, but also the place where I come from. In my work, it is very important, this fact, as I hope I understood, that Carlos also mentioned. I haven't studied abroad, but I tried somehow to understand and go deeper into the place where I come from, not only in the sense of its spatial qualities, but also in the sense of the people who were working in these places before me. The images I will show you in the beginning are from the project that we did for the Biennale in 2018, where we tried to present our office through the ways how we approach to the place that we investigate. In fact, really, we work a lot with the existing, not only structures, but also existing abandoned places. Therefore, for this, the dust is very important, because as here the poet Josif Brodsky says, the dust carries the flesh and the blood of time within the rooms that we try to intervene. So we exhibited in a very simple installation actually what we are trying to do with our project. This is mostly digging out the void and establishing new void and empty spaces for the new life inside the existing buildings. Most of this that I'm going to show you are the transformation of the existing, mostly also protected spaces. So this was the installation at the Venice Biennale that was also presented in a book, and behind the panels that you saw, there were some topics that are very important for our work that are mentioned there above. And one of them is, of course, the place where I come from. As also Peter Zumthor, the Swiss architect, mentions very beautifully, it's very important to know the origins of yourself, the origins of the places where you come from. Remember the childhood impressions, experiences, atmospheres, and all the things that somehow created you as you are, as unique as you all students are. Because I think that although all the objectives of certain projects are very sometimes similar, the reactions, how we treat them, and of course transform them into our architecture are very different, and they are very much related to the personality of us. So these are my spaces that you see that are very different from Spain, but also in a way similar, with lots of water to the things I experience here in La Coruña. These are the alpine spaces with lots of snow, with lots of vertical mountains, with cold and freeze and winds. But on the same time, these are also Mediterranean spaces that we experience in the summer, of open, long horizons. So between those two, let's say, contradictions, I live. And very beautifully, an architect, which I met but died soon after, which was born in 21, died in 96, wrote, when he did this sketch, that we live below the sky, which is also the light and our desire, and step on the ground, which is also the history, which is also archaeology, which is also gravitation, and in between there is the horizon where these different poles meet, and where architects are dealing with these two contradictory poles. This as well is very well presented also in this project of an architect that I did a book about. It's Oton Jugovec, the friend of the former one, a very close friend. He was also born 21 and died sooner, 87. And he did this roof, which is actually an interpretation of a hay rack, of a wooden installation where people were drying hay. But this is not for its sake. It is a protection of a small church ruin, of a small archaeological site. And it's standing just on 2 columns. It's a very daring, inventive construction, hanging with these 2 eels above the ground and letting the freedom of the horizon, completely free this horizon. So through the research of this architect, through this book, I somehow got into the past, got to meet my ancestors, got to meet architects that were working before me, and step by step, also through the book, students started to come and visit this heritage as well, and try to learn about it, what it can tell to us, how it can, in a way, how we can work on the steps that were done before us. So through my projects that I will slowly show you, I hope it is not too much because Carlos yesterday evening mentioned some others that he wants to see, so you have to stop me if if it will be too long. I will just try to go through the processes that I deal with that are not just, I don't want to show you just images, I want to show you how step by step we go through the project. And there are going to be some that are dealing with the existing and some that are done completely new. And I want to show also this first project because I think for the students it's interesting to see that it's nice to start with the small things, because then through the years, let's say 10 years, you learn how to really, who you are, how to deal with it, how to, in a way, make it on a bigger scale, and you learn also by doing. So this is the first project in Ljubljana. It's a small chapel in the center of the city. I was invited here to work on a competition to transform this basement into shops. And I didn't win the competition, but the priests changed their mind because the man who won was a bit dangerous. He started to demolish the whole area of the monastery, and they were afraid that he would go on with that. So they came to me and they said, why don't you start? Why don't you do your project of the shops? And I met the clients, I met people who wanted to rent these spaces, and I saw it's a very dangerous thing, this commercial program. So also fortunately the brothers, the priests from this monastery changed their mind and said, okay, we think it's also not a good program for our house. Why don't we do a small meditation chapel, a small Eucharistic chapel actually. So it was then decided just to do an entrance here in this basement and to transform these 2 small rooms into a bigger space. So from these 2 rooms, I did just 1 room by demolishing these walls, by creating a niche for the entrance and a ramp where you turn around and orientate you towards the church wall, the wall of the big church with a small inclined wall. So you see here the light is coming inside, and these are the 3 elements: the white niche with the pavement, the wooden panel at the back, and the altar wall which is holding the, let's say, the sacred, which is holding the cross and the tabernaculum. This is the model showing how the light is supposed to enter, and this is this niche, being really just a kind of a more polished stone and the inclined wall of the existing stone and the door behind. So this is like trying to be no change of this pediment binding the monastery and the church. So this is the entrance room, the backside wall with the stone, with the wooden cladding, an angel from the monastery, the banks, and just the cross. So it was really a very simple interior with this door, like a moving wall, bringing you inside and bringing also the daylight into this space. So this is the contact of the commercial street of Ljubljana and the silence room behind. And it was in a way recognized as that. But unfortunately, after some years, this was difficult to maintain, to manage, and the people were sleeping inside and so on. So they closed the room and they closed the doors. And now they are transforming this space into a bakery. Now they came to me and asked me if I want to do the project to change it into the bakery. They already made me the proposal how to do it, and then I decided not to do this, and I said thank you. I don't care in a way about my project, but I think it's not a clever decision to have 7 bakeries on the same street and having all these kind of commercial things. That was in a way recognized as a difference in these commercial programs. So some years later, this priest who was guiding the project invited me to come to another town, because he was then replaced to another village. This is a village northwest of Ljubljana, our capital, and it's having a big area of a pilgrimage site here on the border of this small village. So he said we should renovate the square in front of the church. We have to do a new proposal for the altar here and arrange and demolish all these walls. We want to have a bigger square here. Then, step by step, when we were entering the space, we saw these walls, and we saw that they were done by Jože Plečnik, our most important architect, and they are orientated towards the biggest mountain of Slovenia. This is Triglav, Three Peaks Mountain. So we thought it is a pity to really transform all these already defined spaces and to recreate these wonderful atmospheres. So we did a proposal to keep these walls and keep the square in front of the church and keep this park that is on a lifted ground, to keep this, let's say, 3 spaces: the open square, the green, a more silent zone, and another square here. And they accepted this proposal, and we put all the programs here on behind this wall. So it's a storage and a toilet, and this altar, we proposed to move it from the church side to this side and keep the view to the mountain open again. So we have all these Plečnik walls liberated, the view to the mountain and the view to the church, and the altar is pushed inside the wall. So we did also a model, a big white model, just to show that the materiality is supposed to be very, in a way, adapted to the existing materiality. So we are using white stone and white concrete, and these are the thoughts about how to do the altar. So in this way, the inspiration for me was an altar that was done by Plečnik in a church. He did this altar for a school, and it is like a closet, like a wooden, simple closet. But what is making this altar sacred is this Carrara stone at the back of the closet. So he's putting the stone inside the closet, which is a very unusual thing, and therefore we were thinking how to do our thing. So this is the model of the altar, how it is opening, and this is how it was done. This is very shortly the process of reinforcement of the walls, of the new pavement and everything, and this is just this intervention here. You see the white pavement and the altar on the side of the church. So this altar is opening like that through the doors and bringing the interior towards the exterior. So the interior is of the birch wood and the light from the back, and this is the light and the connection with the outdoor square. So priests can then step the steps down towards the people. So these are just some details: the new stairs and the renovated stairs of the Plečnik's interventions here. This is a very typical staircase by Plečnik, pushed inside and outside like this. Later on, we did a competition for a town of Raune. It's a steel production town. It's a very industrial town, and we did here 3 projects. And one project is this one. It was the first project for this place. This is a project for a castle renovation into a library. It looked like that before we came. It was all parked with cars. The square was invisible, and there were really old pathways and crossing, and it was difficult to read the building in general, which had a Renaissance castle and Baroque interventions. So this was the interior of the library, all built up, messed up. We won a competition here, and while proposing to reorganize the spaces and connect them better with the exterior. So this is a sketch, a conceptual sketch of a pavement connecting all these new volumetric interventions inside the castle, and these are the competition designs. These are very old designs, I have to say, from 20 years ago. So very radical in a sense, and very, very simply done, like a collage. But actually we wanted to reorganize this structure to make it more empty, more open, with two interventions that are somehow organizing a free access library inside this existing, let's say, castle structures. So here you see that we blocked certain ways, and we somehow established a continuation of the space while transforming it from this courtyard into this courtyard. We were working lots with models, and here you see the plan. We established a new entrance to the castle with a new roof above it, and another entrance for the public part of the castle, which is the most precious part of the library. And this is the children department. So the access is mostly coming into the square, and the square is the open room of the library. Yeah, this is the model of the intervention, and another model of the furniture. So this is my colleague Maruša. Well, she's standing with this model, testing how it will work on the site. And this was the construction site, which were actually a very rough conditions while making the void inside, because it was all built up. There were rooms, storage, and step by step we discovered really precious elements like this column. And it was a very tough process because it has to be done in 1 year, dealing with the protection office of preservation. These two ladies are, of course, conservators, and it was lots of discussion on the site while the construction had to be really strong to carry all the books. And we were opening certain windows and then in another way connecting the interior and the exterior rooms, like you see here. You see the passage, but you see on the same time also both sides of the library. So this is part of the new intervention, the addition of the children and music department and the new entrance to the new square, which is this one. We managed to keep the linden tree, as tree being a very important element to this outside room of the library. And on the right side you see already the new intervention. And this is the mostly just cleaning of the interiors, presentation of the chapel, which is now empty like that, but connecting also to the library with the window that we discovered. This is the children department and the new staircase inside the library. And here you see by the entrance part how the interior and exterior are connected with these new interventions, and this is the children department with the new, let's say, better connections with the outdoor rooms of it. The next project in this place was the project for a youth hostel, which was on the other side of this big park. And this is the site of this youth hostel, how it's supposed to be, on a very inclined area with two very important trees. And this hostel is planned to be a new box, a new wooden construction completely out of wood, and the entrance was placed between those two trees, which were cut later on, a couple of years after. Unfortunately, the only essence of the site, the only important thing, was then by the municipality replaced by two younger trees, which are growing very slowly. So the idea was to make very condensed program boxes and then to organize the empty space between them. So we had to have very few openings just because it had to be a very self-sufficient building. So it's all wooden construction. This is the reception room, this is the desk, and these are the spaces in between these full wooden boxes. So we were dealing lots with the daylight, how it's bringing the communication upside down to these two levels. This is the public room of the hostel. It's a very small actual building, and it's also having a wooden facade, because we wanted to show, if we do a wooden building, that it's also visible from the inside and outside, that it's really a wooden construction. Usually in our country it's typical that they clad it outside with plaster and inside they put cardboard, and you don't see actually that it's a wooden building. So our will was to promote wooden construction and also show that on the outside. And the last project for this huge park was a school, actually a very big school laying here on the edge of the forest. So you see, we wanted to have this contact with the forest. So the idea was how to place the school into this territory, not to occupy it too much. So we were thinking to organize the outdoor spaces in the way that they somehow flow through the basement through the ground floor of the school, cover these communication areas into a kind of a new box with lots of outdoor spaces. So this is the outdoor platform of the school, getting you inside this new void that is in double height space, and is communicating with the balcony, with the backside, and with the staircase. So this is this double height space, and here seen from the other side, from above. So all the corridors are planned to have the daylight inside. So there are lots of voids cut into the volume to organize and to bring the daylight into the spaces. These are the classrooms, very, very simple, and this is the backside room, the lecture room of the school, of course having also big windows towards the nature. These are two other projects dealing with another town of Maribor. This is a town along a big river on the north of Slovenia, and this is one spot of this transformation of a mansion. Maribor was a medieval town with a big and very rectangular medieval plan, and we were invited to do a project for a manor of a certain values, but when we came to the site was really horrible in a way. It transformed a lot with lots of interventions, very, very ugly interventions. So the only thing we found really interesting here was the light, actually the light coming from the south into the spaces, and we wanted to keep these impressions. We wanted to do the program for this cultural center in a way to keep the light. But the second idea was, of course, how to connect all these divided spaces into one unity, how to create these passages. So we had to demolish for that all the partition walls and to reorganize the staircases. So one staircase was here, and the other was done here, and the third one here. So you can do a kind of a space loop through the building and walk through the one entrance to all the rooms, to the courtyard, from the courtyard to this room, and here above to the first floor. And also in the first floor, we demolished all those partition dividing walls of all these apartments there, and creating a kind of a promenade through all the spaces. In that kind of interventions, it's very complicated where to put the elevator, where to put these banal things of our time. So we had to, in a way, sacrifice part of this building to really create all the infrastructure. So this is the upper level, and all the yellows are actually the new interventions that you see also in the sections, how we wanted to connect different levels. We were allowed to do quite lots of new windows in the building on the places where the old ones. And here you can see the construction site, which actually is more, let's say, how to really clean the things, how to find out all the layers of the past, and of course demolish all these plasters and pavements to get in the light. So you see the transformation of the build-up spaces into the new ones. No? From that, discovering, of course, the existing void. All these interventions in the project are black-brown. So you see the connection in this two-height level of this space, and the backside wall with all the infrastructure like the ventilation and heating and, of course, the lights. We discovered lots of interesting, let's say, clusters and connections like this connection to the basement, and we had to transform the project for this sake to do a bridge crossing this room to establish the space as it was before that. So this is the new intervention covering the old plaster below, allowing the new entrance. Unfortunately, it's not in the book because it's completely in a bad condition. That's why I want to explain you. And this is, of course, these difficulties of the construction side, this difficult discussion among the company which was building, and the happiness of the workers, because they are always, in a way, prepared to help you through all these difficult steps. This is one room, how it was in a way discovered with all the paintings, and this is this promenade of the spaces in the first floor. And then at the end, of course, the light, how the light is entering these rooms, and they are for multi-purpose programs, and therefore sometimes they are really in a bad condition, filled up with lots of stuff and so on. And we try to leave also the traces of the past, like this Gothic entrance and the balcony, la veranda on the upper floor. So this is the new staircase you see outside, and the balcony that is also newly done to connect the outside corridors. And these are the new windows of the lecture hall above. In Maribor we did later another project, which is a culinary school, which is on the edge of the city. If this is the Maribor again, this is close to the railway, in a very dense built street, where we actually proposed to demolish an existing building and to add an inner new core with all the infrastructure that is necessary for this very complicated program, and to cover this program mostly with a new facade that is establishing a dialogue with the existing street facades on both sides of this intervention. So behind that, the new, let's say, infrastructural program you see in all the levels is mostly dealing with the void between these old programs that are creating this school. And this school is a very interesting school, having a program of a hotelier school, of cooks, of service building, waiters, and of course some wellness program. And below there is a restaurant where kids that learn in this school can also practice how you cook there, how you make the service, how you, and then from learning you go to doing, to the practice where they are in a way getting into the working process. So here you see a comparison of the building that we unfortunately had to demolish because it was in a very bad construction conditions, and because of this very strong and demanding programs we had to do a new building behind. This is just a comparison how it looked before the street and how it's looking today. In the section you see that it's a lot of program also digged into the ground, like the lecture hall, and that is a heavy program on the tops of the restaurant, of the kitchens, of the lecture rooms, the library here in double height, and a terrace with a kind of a lecture room on the top of the building. These are some plans, which, for instance, the plan of the restaurant in the ground floor, where you go up to the terrace and you can enter the lecture room from the back side. So we tried to connect the programs from the entrance up to this level, the level of the terrace, entering the lecture room below. So this is the facade. It's the only building we did actually out of glass. We are not using glass very often, but we wanted to have a certain let's say, lightness in this very built-up street of two-layered facade of this glass and the very modest, let's say, house behind it. And this is this lecture room below, trying also to have some daylight inside, a day kitchen and the library, and some rooms where you can learn how to deal with wine, for instance. This is a wine testing room. And these are the kitchens. This was the main program of the building, actually, to do kind of study kitchens. And therefore, we actually came to the idea of to have the glass facade, because we wanted that everybody from the streets sees inside what the kids are doing, how they are learning. So this communication from in and outside spaces we wanted to have. And this is the restaurant below, and this is the view from the street. So you see above the kitchens, and you see into the restaurant as well. So you see how the life in the house is going on. And this is this double-side facade, how it is also a space in between those two buildings. Then while doing in Maribor, we were somehow invited to see a ruin here in another town close to this river that is connecting the former town and this town. Its name is Ormos. And it has a castle here, controlling the site, of course, above the river. And this castle had a storage building behind. And it looked like that. This is the castle, already renovated. And, sorry. And this is this building, how it was when we came here. They already had a project with the glass interventions and something, and they said, the architects want too much money from us. We can't afford so much money. Are you prepared to do a project of a music school and a museum for us for this money that we have? And I said, oh, it's such a beautiful place in a way, such a ruin, and in a way the program of a public building is always a very much interest for us. Pardon. So we accepted this, and we went through the spaces, and we saw that behind this ruined state actually were beautiful vaulted rooms, and that also the space, the square in front of it, is looking towards the city. So you see, this is the main square of the city, and this is the square in front of our building. So this is a kind of an axial connection of both squares. And we wanted to have a tree here and a public room in front of our building. We had to put all the program again inside, behind the walls. There was no possibility to build outside because it's an archaeological site. So we decided to put the museum here, this is the red part, and the music here, the music school here. So they are all connected with this common room. And above, these are the lecture rooms, and this is the museum. So the museum was then, at the end, decided to be archaeological and, let's say, also the sculptures from the Baroque and older periods. So we decided to use each room and treat it in a very different way, because the rooms were really different. One was different from the other, and we wanted to have a circular crossing of the both levels. So this is the entrance canopy, connecting the entrance to the music school and to the museum. And this is the room where both programs are using this room as an exhibition room and as a music room. So this yellow are all the demolitions. This is like cleaning of the existing structure, but you have to think how you clean it, that you gain through the cleaning, of course, the entities of these programs. So this is the void of the entrance to the music school and the void to the entrance to the museum. And all these are more introverted programs of the museum and of the offices. Again, as you saw before, the roughness of the construction site, but this is a big adventure, I have to tell you. This is really steps when you see how the voids get out. So you see the light entering the rooms, and you see the qualities of these spaces. And this is the final presentation of this entrance room to the music school, as well as this common room of exhibitions, and the most precious room with these two columns where this is a space for temporary exhibitions. This is the entrance to this archaeological part of the museum with all the setting of different ambiences, where we were working a lot how really to present all the findings into small ambiences of the everyday life of this prehistoric town of Ormos. We had a lot of discussion what materials to use for all these new interventions, because we considered glass not appropriate for these new interventions. So at the end we decided to take brick, because we had to cover the building with the ceramic brick tiles. So we were presenting clay sculptures and using the brick in all the different ways, because we find also lots of traditional buildings built out of brick in this area. So Juan made beautiful photographies of all the buildings, traditional buildings around. These are the ones that we did while traveling every time to the site and exploring how we can use this brick in a new modern way. So you see one of the rooms, of the exhibition rooms, that both sides are having facades out of brick, and you see the views from these rooms to the outside. And this is the upper part of the building of the music school, where kids can wait before they start their piano lessons. And this is a lecture room of the music school. From the outside, you see the square where you arrive, you see the addition, and of course you see the roof that is connecting the whole intervention. And this is the square in front of the whole area, and you see how it is working, but it is full of people. So this was planned to be an outside auditorium in front of the building, to community to gather here and listen to kids playing what they learn, or to have certain events, of course, also of the museum. This is somehow something that interests us, the social, public part of the building. These are the last two projects I'm going to show you. One is for a castle just close to this area. This is northeast of Slovenia, and this is a huge castle that's supposed to have 365 rooms, one for each day. But they are, of course, not all used and not all renovated. It's partly a ruin, and partly we renovated certain rooms. Some rooms, 4 rooms, are for a hotel. This is an old intervention from 20 years ago, I think, of restoring one wing of this castle into hotel rooms. And this is the last part of the intervention, when we just cleaned the chapel room and decided just to do a bench here. And just to present, let's say, the light, how it's entering the space. This is the right part, is just a small room with the sculptures below a tower of the church. So this is a very, very small, really, actually, intervention. The castle still is mostly a ruin, and people can somehow connect all these different times and interventions. And this is the last project I'm showing. I hope I'm not too long. This is a project for a renovation of a home of our most important architect. This year we just celebrate 150 years since he was born. And this is a house, a very small house, that we all architects like very much. And we take all our friends there, our colleagues from abroad, and it is a very small, modest, intimate space of this architect. For understanding who he was, actually, you must know the place where I come from. This is our country, and we are now here. So just to imagine how small we are. This is Spain, and this is Slovenia. No? It's like it's smaller than Galicia, I think. No? So we are very small, but we are placed between Austria, which is there, and Vienna, and Italy, now Venice. So these two countries influenced the place where I come from very much. And also Plečnik. You see him here when he was studying in Vienna with Otto Wagner, a very important Viennese architect. And here he's still smiling. Therefore I like this photo very much. Here he is with Otto Wagner. Here is Plečnik. And here he is in his later years. You see him very serious, in a very strict composition for the photographer now. And I never met him. He died in 1957. But they said to us he was a very severe person, very strict, very strong, a very demanding professor, very also Catholic person. So, but the spaces that he offered to us are these. The spaces are open, non-commercial spaces, spaces to sit along the river, to reflect life and enjoy the public rooms. So they are done somehow for pleasure. So for me, he has a certain duality. How can be he so reserved if the spaces are so welcoming? No, they are really showing a certain empathy for the public space, and people, of course, are using them. But these are the spaces of also a very big scale, like the cemetery, no? That was beautifully photographed by Juan. And the cemetery is a garden cemetery of pavilions in a garden. But that is, at the end, of course, another intervention done by him that I'm showing you, because he connected the city with certain urban gestures. And perhaps this is even more important than his big projects. And one of these interventions is on the top of the castle. I don't know if we saw that, but it's a beautiful intervention dealing with a ruin and with the new together, binding them, old times, landscape, with the view towards the castle, towards the city. So this is a beautiful, empty public space done by Plečnik that was offered to us citizens who live in this city. We were invited to deal with the renovation of his home, which is actually a very, very small house, completely different than all the things that he did in the city. This house was bought by his brother Andrei in 1915, and he moved to the house when he came back from the world. He was living many years in Vienna, living and working in Prague, and then in 1921 he came to Ljubljana to be here a professor. So he moved to this house just to these 3 rooms on the attic. And later on, he was dreaming to make an addition to the house. And these are the plans of this addition for the tower. So he added a circular building, a tower, and he was living later on in this circular, unusual room. And later, he built a canopy, a pergola, and another room here. So the 3rd addition. And the last addition was this winter garden here. When he bought a house, he did another addition. So he gained the access to the garden that is here at the back. So you see him in front of the first part of the additions, and you see the tower building from the behind. When we started to work with this project, this part that was along the street was still occupied partly by the museum and partly by a couple, by a family living here, and they had a parking here, a car, and this was their backside patio. So the city decided, in a way, they decided to make these spaces public, to make a small entrance to this museum, because the house is really, really tiny. It's a very, very small house. You can go there as a guided tour of 7 people. So the guide takes you, they explain you can touch everything, you can see everything. It's a guided visit that people like very much. So if a bus of visitors come, they can wait here in the front, and then they are organized to go into the house. So the house looked like that when we started. It was full of stuff and installations done recently, and we had to reinforce it, construction to clean it. And for that, it was done lots of studies, like the conservation plans, because it's very much protected, of course. But we decided to put the main loggia, the main entrance room, here in the middle. So you can circulate here around, get informed, and wait in the patio. Go to see a small exhibition here on the north, and go to the south room where there are lectures and workshop spaces. So this is more or less an open space that organize the visits to the main part of the house. In the top, there are also connections that you can move also on the top level and visit the curators, the preparation room, and the temporary room exhibitions. So again, lots of demolitions that had to be carefully placed to organize this circulation path that is moving around this main, let's say, heart of the building. And then step by step, mostly just renovation, restoration works by the cleaners, students who are working on the presentation of this existing entrance. Here you enter the house and you come to the backside garden. We removed 2 windows here at the back to make it more clean and more simple. And of course we had to reinforce the tower and plant the plant back again. So these are his rooms where really like punctual interventions were done, presenting the values of this existing house, like the cleaning of the winter garden here that is now, as you see it. It has concrete profiles, therefore we had to be really very careful not to demolish them because they are incredibly beautiful, very tiny. And this is the garden with the nightlight. It's an outdoor pergola where the garden was also reconstructed and the kitchen where he was living. This is his room, his studio, after just cleaning the things, and how it is today. So you see the table or his stools, everything he was using. You can visit and almost touch everything what is here. So the stairs bringing you up to the rooms where he was living the first time, the first years, and just the attic that we renovated into the working rooms with this horizontal window on the left side, where the light is coming from below, because we were not allowed for nothing on the roof. It's like Ljubljana is really crazy. The roof landscape is protected landscape. So, but mostly the interventions were done here in this patio, where we started to scratch off the plasters and finding really interesting layers of different treatments. So we decided to keep and present them all. This is the new open patio that can be also closed in the winter, because we have like -20 also here in so we have to also organize the spaces in a closed way. But with this door that you see how it was before, we are showing how we stepped through the scratching off the layers and presenting at the door as it is at the end. It's actually a mask of a porch that was here below. So we presume that probably it was also done by the architect Pličnik now. So the door is now presented as found, just cleaned, without the paint, and with this new small door inside that is bringing you into the exhibition rooms, that you can move and see his works in the foreign countries, in Vienna and Prague, and entering and moving through these exhibition rooms that we also wanted to keep with all the daylight inside, showing a big model of Ljubljana and some big projects for Ljubljana that he did. And this is the shop and the entrance room where you see him and the patio and the timeline of it. This is all the team, but not all the team. This is this interdisciplinary team for that kind of project that we need. These are the custodians, the restaurators, the conservators, and also the people I work with on that kind of projects. I have to say that Pličnik is at the moment very much discussed in our country, how referential he can be. He did an intervention also in our school, and this is the studio where I work, where I have this beautiful window that was also done by him with this famous column. And the window is somehow also an element that I used in a very small intervention, that is the final thing, to also, in a way, memorize the work of another architect that I started to work with. This is Edvard Ravnikar, an architect that was working mostly in the 80s. That's one of his first projects that we visited with the students, and that is a kind of a manifestation of a wall and a window in a wall. That were two topics that interested him a lot, and this is this intervention that I did to somehow memorize his work through the way I work. This is also a wall, but it's not a stone wall that he was using, it's a wooden wall. And this is a window placed on a window that was already existing, memorizing also an element that he was using in his projects a lot. So that was it for my side. Thanks a lot for your attention.